be able to tap into this another time. So we're going to try to do that. So we're going to do a brief recap of last week. And really, this is an amazing segue into this week. Okay. So we said that the Jews we find ourselves during the time of the Omer, Sphere to Omer. And it's a mitzvah that we're every single day, we talked about it last week a little bit. It's a mitzvah that every single day we're counting. What are we counting from? So we know in our classes, we've usually discussed that any time there's a Jewish calendar event, it's either something that happened to us in our past. And I'm going to try to recap the ideas for those of us who spent an hour on this last week. I'm going to try to do this pretty succinctly, okay? But let me know if I missed any points, okay? So we're usually commemorating something that happened to us as a people, something as a part of our story, something as a part of history. We're recounting something that occurred. That's part one. And we're commemorating it because there's something that we're supposed to, like we just said, walk away from this experience, tapping into that energy of what happened and where we could draw it into our lives and into ours. I tried to, it didn't, I don't know if it went. I tried to, I started to do it, but I don't know if it went. Into our lives, it's still spinning. So I don't know.
Mine says you're recording.
Yeah.
Mine too.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. There we go.
Yeah, you're good, Manya.
All right, awesome. So we'll keep going. Okay. So we're supposed to be commemorating something, right? And we said last week, the classic is Rosh Hashanah is the new year and the world was created, and that's what we're commemorating. And Yom Kippur, we're commemorating forgiveness, and we're trying to revisit that. We're trying to revisit that energy because that's the first time the first humans were forgiven. Adam and Chava were forgiven on the 10th day since creation. Therefore, that's the energy of creation that comes into the world, of the energy of forgiveness comes into the world that we're tapping into and like kind of drawing into our lives. We said Jewish calendar isn't past, present, future. It's like a spiral where we're drawing on that energy of that event and bringing it into our lives. So what is this Omer situation? Why are we commemorating it? And what can we draw into our lives at the end of the day? Because there has to be a practical takeaway. It has to leave me changed. Another interesting layer to this story is we said, why is it called Sefirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer? So we said counting, Sefira, lispor, means to count. So what are they counting? What was being counted? And what's Omer? Omer was this barley offering given in the temple during this time period from the second night of Passover. It kind of correlates with this journey of counting of the Omer. And then during Shavuot, it was swapped out or switched to a wheat offering, okay? Something about the offerings, it's so dominant, the offering in the temple, that this whole 49-day period gets named by it. Interesting. Let's talk that. Let's put that on the side. We will get to that by the end of today, okay? The other thing is, what are we counting? From where to what, and what happened historically that's the counting that we are doing, okay? So, now okay. So, what is this counting and what are we doing and where are we going? If we're tapping something that happened historically to us as a people, what is it? So we know, backtrack, I'm going to add one more layer to this question, is that there are mitzvot that are seasonal. Hanukkah is a seasonal thing, okay? Rosh Hashanah, seasonal. Like, think of all the seasonal holidays, things that happen once a year. We tap into them. There's this energy of like newness. I know for us at Chabad, there's certain foods that I'll make certain times a year because they're like connected to that time of year, like honey cake on Rosh Hashanah. And like people already know, Susanna, you're shaking your head because there's certain dishes you had at Chabad certain times a year. I don't make potato kugel chicken any time of year except Passover, or borscht. It's a Passover treat. Or honey cake is a Rosh Hashanah treat. Like there's things that are definitely seasonal, and the mitzvot that are seasonal as well, right? So just like, pumpkin spice lattes are like a seasonal October situation. So in Judaism, there's a heavy emphasis on mitzvot that are seasonal and the traditions and connections that are seasonal as well. So think to yourself of like a mitzvah that happens like once a year, right? Or let's say it's a bar mitzvah. It happens once, commemorates an event. So there's a seasonal, there's the occasions, like the things that are an occasion, like a bar mitzvah or a wedding, right? And then there's the daily mitzvot. Daily mitzvot is like you wake up, you say Moda'ani. You wake up, you wash Netilat Yadayim. You give tzedakah every day. You pray to Hashem every day. Your food that you eat is kosher. That's daily. On the daily. Mitzvot that happen daily. We say Shema, daily. So you have the daily mitzvot. You have the seasonal mitzvot. And you have the occasion mitzvot. Somehow, this mitzvah of counting in the Omer actually kind of straddles both worlds. It's seasonal, meaning we do it only once a year, but we bring it into the daily routine for 49 days. That's a lot. That's 7 weeks. Okay. So we're doing it seasonally because it only happens once a year. But on the other hand, it happens daily for 49 days. So it kind of becomes part of your daily routine. And I know for us, let's say our daily routine is before we make sure, like either after dinner to count the Omer or before bed. Oh my gosh, did I count the Omer yet? Right? So it becomes kind of part of the daily routine. So what is this mitzvah? What is it commemorating? What are we supposed to walk away from? And like, how do I practically bring that into my life? Okay. Does that make sense? We have all the questions on the table so far that we kind of covered last week. Did I miss anything? Okay. Not yet. Okay. Awesome. So if you,
I can sit on her.
7 weeks, right, Manya?
7 weeks. So it's 49 days from the second night of Passover till Shavuot. Okay. Shavuot is the 50th. Now let's go first, dial it back to the very, very basics. Also, again, I'm going to add 2 more questions that we did not touch upon last week. Yes, Tamara.
I'm gonna disconnect from you guys, set my setup on my computer, and then get on my phone.
So
Okay.
Feel free. We'll see you soon. Mwah. Okay.
Bye.
Jump in when you're ready. And we'll recap whatever it is. Okay. All right. So what is it? What is this? What is this shift? Okay. The other thing the other question I wanted to add to it is this kind of like counting seems a little bit mundane. Now, we all know that we have countdowns. You have a countdown to a vacation you're supposed to be taking. You have a countdown to a wedding that's going to be happening. You have a countdown to a bar mitzvah, right? And right now, actually, part of what's so stressful is all of those countdowns kind of went to like nothing. Now, like, what are we counting, right? Like, we're just, I can't hear you. Well, yes, I need you. Hold on. Sarah, I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Oh, well, and we don't have an end to this, so we don't know what we're counting down.
Literally, exactly. That's part of it. It's like, there's no end in sight. We don't know how this is going to look, even if the governor wants to put everything back together, like, but it's not gone. The problem is still here. Okay. So where is this emphasis? And there could be a level that it seems a little bit mundane, this counting. Like last week we looked at the text of the actual prayer, and it seems like, what's actually going on here? Like, what are we counting? It's like, and even like the text of the prayer talks about how it's going to refine us and we're going to be better people. We're going to get rid of evil within ourselves. Like how does counting lead to that? All of that. Okay. So now with all those questions on the table, we're going to put it hopefully together, and we'll walk away with something that is practical, that we could bring into our lives, that we could like help make sense of all of this. Because I think if anything nowadays, knowing that we're counting to nothing and like we don't know is coming or going is part of what we're struggling with. Okay. And tomorrow, I know at 12:30 we have this Let's Talk session with Sarah, and she's been giving us really amazing tools every week to help navigate this up in the air situation. Okay. So back to what we were talking about. So the Jews were slaves in Egypt, right? 3,500 years ago, they were slaves in Egypt. And then they were told, you're being free. No problem. Free from Egypt. Exciting. They were enslaved. They had no control over their time. They had no control over, what their to-do list was. They were completely controlled by another entity. In this case, the slavery, in this case, Pharaoh, in this case, right? The Egyptian, whatever the Egyptians wanted. Okay. Now God says, listen, I'm going to free you, and I'm freeing you so that you could serve me in the temple. So not in the temple, sorry. So you could serve me in the desert. Okay. And then later the Mishkan happens in the desert. But I need you to be free so you could serve me. How do we serve Hashem? So we know from when they left Egypt, for 49 days they traveled. And then on the 50th day, what did they receive?
Torah.
They received the Torah. That's correct. So they received the Torah. So now why is it that they needed to go through this counting phase? Because actually what's interesting is when they were enslaved, they had really, really not been the best version of themselves, meaning they had so many burdens from the slavery. They were exposed to a lot of idolatry and a lot of toxic Egyptian cultural dynamics, okay, that were counterintuitive or counter to them being a holy nation, okay? And it actually says that they really sunk to the lower levels of impurities in Egypt. And without God kind of scooping them up, they would have been lost forever. There was only 3 things they held on to. Shemosam, their names. Lashonam, their language. They still kept their language, the Jewish language. And Levusham, their clothing. Other than that, they had sunk into culture, Egyptian culture. And they were almost at risk of kind of losing their identity as the children of Jacob, Bnei Yisrael, the children of Yaakov, the Beit Yaakov, the house of Jacob, without them being scooped up. So how does this nation go from slave mentality, just psychological slave mentality, right, to this phase where they're, and immorality, okay, to this phase where they're ready to receive the mandate of why we exist, our guidance for life. As a matter of fact, Torah is described as chachmato, which means God's will and God's wisdom. So God's will and wisdom for the entire world, for humanity, was given to the Jewish people. How are they going to get ready for this shift? Psychological shift, emotional shift, spiritual shift. How were they able to ready themselves for it? And here comes we're going to start with like the answer, and then we're going to unpack it and answer all the questions. That's what we're commemorating. They basically started out enslaved, slave mentality, immoral. 49 days, 50. They had to go through some sort of transformation. They had to go through stages of self-refinement, of being ready to receive that gift. On a simple level, you have a wedding, you have a bar mitzvah, you have a bat mitzvah. No one's going to just show up at the day. You're going to do preparations, physical ones, and hopefully spiritual ones as well. The time when you're getting ready to get married, for sure in our circles, there's a deep spiritual avodah that's going on now at that time when you're from engagement. Because you don't just show up at the wedding, this massive day where your soul is going to be fused with this other person. You're going to take on this journey of life together just with a gown and a nice hall, just the material preparations. There's also the spiritual preparations. And so similarly, when we're about to receive the Torah, there has to be those preparations. Now, okay, that's wonderful. That happened. Fine. What does that have to do with me? So in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, every single day we say a bracha, notein haTorah. We thank God for giving us the Torah. And it's not written in past, like thanks for the gift you gave me. It's written in the present, meaning that every single day we're acknowledging that the Torah is kind of for us today. And in Yiddishkeit, Chassidus teaches us, Kabbalah teaches us that receiving the Torah is not something that happened, always interesting something that happened. There's something that's happening. So that means that when Shavuot shows up, we want to be ready. We want to be ready for receiving that Torah again. What's that Torah? The Torah is our mandate, God's will and God's wisdom, what God wants out of us, how we're supposed to live to maximize the potential, to live who we are, and how we can bring light into the world, and how we can operate the best operating system for us. You know, like you get a new phone and they have to update the operating system. We have an operating system, and our operating system and our best way for operating is Torah. So what God's saying is, what Judaism is telling us is, these 49 days is actually an exercise in getting ready physically, spiritually, and emotionally and psychologically. So last week we talked about, so that's what we're commemorating. That's the journey we're taking, and we're drawing in on that energy that the Jews spent those 49 days refining themselves to be Torah ready, and now we're drawing that into our reality. And what's also interesting is, aside from being Torah ready, right? We want to be ready to like refocus on that energy. How do we do that? So the Torah actually, the prayer that we say every single day, so the passage in the Torah tells us just to count, and the Omer offering. We read it last week, if you recall. The biblical command is, I'm going to read it actually, 49 days from the second day of Passover to Shavuot, and this is the actual command from Leviticus, okay? And you shall count for yourselves from the morrow of Shabbat, from the day that you bring the Omer offering, that is raised 7 complete weeks, and it shall be until the morrow of the 7th week, you shall count 50 days. So really it's more focusing on the offering and on the counting. Where does this whole thing come in? Because last week we talked about how every week we focus on a different human character trait. Okay. Last week, if you recall, we talked about the 7 character traits, and I'm just going to put them out there. And this is something more of a layer from Kabbalah that teaches us about, is that every single one of us possesses 7 powers, 7 energies that we have. And I bet if you take a look at these 7, you can kind of introspect and say, like, okay, all 7 of those are part of me. Some in higher concentrations, some in lower concentrations, okay, different variations of it, but definitely 7 different ones. So what are they? So there's chesed, love and kindness, gevura, which is strength and discipline, chesed, gevura, tiferes, which is either consistency or beauty, like something that's constant. There's there's little variations of all of those. Chesed, gevura, tiferes, netzach, hod, yisod, and malchus, which is love, beauty, ambition, humility, bonding, and like royalty, regal. So how do we tap into, look with introspect, look at those 7 different character traits and understand them within the lens of our own life? So let's say the first week of chesed, love and kindness. How can I look at love and kindness in my own life? And we said last week, let's say chesed, love and kindness within my own life and with how it relates to others. Because we're not one-dimensional. It's not just about ourselves. Self-refinement, we've talked about this in the past. If I'm just focused on me, on myself, I'm going to become a better person. Me time, right? How do I do that in a bubble? I can't, because I operate in the world with other people, right? So think of some of the relationships you have, and think of, let's say, example, how love and kindness can be utilized within those different layers of myself. Maybe I'm a daughter, maybe I'm a sister, maybe I'm a mother, maybe I'm a wife, maybe I'm a professional, maybe I'm a psychologist, maybe I'm a teacher, maybe I'm a professor. Whoever I am, love and kindness is going to come into my life at some capacity. And I'm going to need to reflect on that. And I need to see how I can work on that. And so we spend a week, each day different energy, focusing on a different one of those layers of a specific character trait. Okay. So this week, I'm just going to pull up this week's, sorry, I'm going to try to see. My mouse seems not to be working. Sorry about that. I want to pull up today's, my mouse is not working. Interesting. It's not working at all. Is there a virtual mouse connected? Because my mouse is not working. Is that connected? No, it's not. Okay. All right. My mouse is not working, so I can't pull it up, but I'm going to pull it up over here. No, I can't pull it up over here. Hold on. All right. I want to see today's Omer. Could you read for us today's Omer? So I'll give you an example of how it can connect. You may want to pull up today, and I'm going to share something. So yesterday, someone I was very, very close with, her father passed away during this COVID insane situation. She lives in California. He lives in New York. Her family lives in New York. She attended the funeral via Zoom, the Shiva via Zoom. She sat on her front porch, and some people social distance walked by in Shiva. And she wasn't with her siblings. She wasn't with her family. This is a huge loss. It's her father. And so yesterday they were having a shloshim. Now, for those of you who are familiar, in Judaism, there is a heavy emphasis, perfect, just put it here. There's a heavy emphasis on really marking the different stages of grief and commemorating them. And they actually kind of parallel the neshama's journey, the soul's journey in, is this also the Facebook Live from here? No, because this is so funny. Is it from here, this camera? Okay. Sorry about that. All the technicalities that we're juggling here is going to always look this way. Zoom reality. So she said, how is she supposed to write? The different markers in the journey of mourning, the Jewish stages of mourning, there's Shiva and there's Shloshim and there's a Yartzeit, right? They're all paralleling the neshama, the soul's journey. And they're also very, very, like for the person going through it, it's meant to be a very healthy process and psychologically, emotionally healthy. Now here, no one prepares you for a reality of burying your father over Zoom or a Shiva over Zoom or a Shloshim over Zoom, but she's preparing a speech to give it the Shloshim via Zoom. And I was talking to her and we were talking about, she says, and she started saying that she was trying to think of like, she doesn't want her talk to just be like get everyone all emotional. She doesn't want to cry through the whole thing. Like, she wants to really, really commemorate his life. She wants to have people walk away from this shloshim, tapping into his energy of who he is. So she looked at yesterday's Omer. And yesterday's Omer, this week of Omer, was focusing on, I see. This week's Omer was focusing on the work of, hold on a second, the character trait. It's all on the bottom. Why don't I see the actual character trait on the top? It's the character trait's not on there, I don't think. So yesterday was, this week is Tiferes, okay? Which can be translated as beauty or balance. And I think it was yesterday was Yisod Tiferes. Yisod means a foundation, anchored, right? The Yisodot are the things that anchor us, the foundation. She was thinking, like, if I look at my father's balance of who he was and the foundation of who he was, it was kindness and it was consistent, right? Like, a foundation is something that should always be there. If your foundation has a problem, you have a problem. So she was saying consistently kind. And she walked away with telling people, I want you to walk away from this shloshim thinking of how you can be more consistently kind. And I actually told her I'm going to dedicate today's class in his memory. And that's the biggest gift we could give a neshama that passes on, is send things forward, right? They can't do mitzvot anymore. They can't do Torah anymore. So those in this world can do it. So Yisod Tiferes was talking about this anchor, this grounding, this thing. So when she looked at the Omer of the day, it was like, oh my gosh, this totally encapsulated his entity and his essence of who he was. And she actually focused on that in her talk from the Shloshim. And I think that people walked away from it, certainly with, this is today's or yesterday's? Okay, that's yesterday's. Okay, so yesterday's the compassion. We'll actually talk about today so we can see how we can draw it into our life. She said she was looking at what it is, and it says that for compassion to be fully realized, it needs bonding. It requires creating a channel between the giver and the receiver, and mutuality that extends beyond the moment of need, meaning a bond that continues to live on. And that's true compassion, right? And then the exercise is, do you bond with the ones that you have compassion for? Like, is it just compassion for the sake of compassion because you want to be a compassionate person? Or is it compassion because you bond with that person? So she gave an example. There was a story she told me when we were talking, that she heard a story that someone had said that someone had learned about this Omer, like bonding and compassion. Like, do you bond? Are you consistent? Or is there a foundation? Is there a bond between you and the person you're compassionate about? And she said, she heard a story of like this guy who was very, very wealthy, and he would, every Tuesday, whoever came to him, give tons of charity. So his child wanted to know, like, was my father like a really good person, or was he a person who did good? It's a really good question. And so he realized that on Tuesday, his father was very giving, but on Wednesday, don't bother him. And Wednesday, he was playing golf. Okay, this is not a real story. What's the idea? The idea is, on Tuesday, I'll be good because it works for me. You ever have that moment where you feel like you want to give, so you want to be giving, but are you a giving person? And she said she realized her father, it didn't matter what, when, where, how, he was always giving. And that's an example how you can look into the Omer of the day and find a very, very practical application. So I want to focus on today's Omer. No, you put up today's Omer. Yisod Tiferes was yesterday's. Oh, that was last night. It is today's. Okay, sorry. She gave it at night, so it actually is today's. So Tiferes. So perfect. We're talking about this. So let's say bonding and compassion. How do you blend the two? How do you bring compassion into your daily life with those you bond? Do you bond with those? What about yourself? Let's say compassion for yourself. And here's an exercise for ourselves. Do your interactions achieve anything beyond a single act of sympathy? So let's say someone's struggling and you want to be sympathetic to them. Where is that? Is it beginning and middle and end? How often can you follow through with that? Can you do that in a way that bonds? And I found what she was saying very interesting, because I found like she was looking in I forgot to say this, and I guess this is clarifying for me. When she gave this talk, it was the night. So the Omer, just like the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar, starts at night. So the night begins the new day. That's what was going on. The night began into the new day. Okay? Does that make sense what I'm saying now? Okay. So how did the Jews transform themselves practically? Was by the daily counting, focusing on, Kabbalah tells us, a different character trait each week. Each day a variation of it. So like, let's say Gevura, which is strength, right? And discipline. We all know strength and discipline could be wonderful. We all know strength and discipline could be toxic. Strength and discipline is important for yourself. Strength and discipline is important for others. How do you give that? But strength and discipline is not just only strength and discipline. Sometimes love needs to be involved. Sometimes balance needs to be involved, all with strength and discipline. So every single day we focus on each one of those, but it's really meant to be a strategic, step-by-step progression in character development. And that's why this mitzvah is so unique, that it's both bound by, it's both an occasional mitzvah, meaning it's a seasonal mitzvah, and it's a daily mitzvah. That means it's merging the two worlds. It's meant to become daily part of your routine, but it's also meant to be something that you focus on at this point. So I was having this discussion about someone, and someone said, listen, Manya, that's lovely, but I'm not enslaved. Would you say we're not enslaved in 2020? Unmute Sharon. Sharon, you have to unmute people, you see. Huh?
Oh, we are.
In what way?
Psychologically, emotionally, to many things that burden us on a daily basis. I mean, we do it to ourselves. It's not like someone imposed it upon me, but yeah, it could be. I'm just thinking as a mother right now, you know, to keep up with the Joneses in a way. You hate to say those sorts of things, but in a way, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're all doing. We're in this rat race. At least I am. I feel like I am.
Right. I think you're being honest.
To balance out that. I'm being honest.
I was once speaking with for a group of ladies, and it was about parenting and raising strong, proud Jewish kids in the heart of the Bible Belt. And one of the moms said, like, I want to ask you a question. My child seems very unmotivated to karate or piano or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, is your child down? Is your child depressed? No. So what is your child spending time doing? Oh, climbing trees and reading books. And I was like, your child doesn't need a hobby. Your child is healthy. You need to stop looking on Facebook at what other people's, and she said, everyone else's kids are doing all these things and all these accomplishments. I'm like, you need to get off Facebook and maybe you could get a hobby. Like, you take piano, you take karate. Like, don't leave your kid alone, like, your kid's fine. They're being a kid. So anything else that you feel like really holds us back or enslaves us? Anyone else want to jump in? I know, but my mouse is not working. Like, not at all. You can unmute yourself because it's not working for me. I don't know why. Sorry.
Well, in a way, it would be easier if we were enslaved from outside, because then it would be obvious. You would see what's going on. And it would even be easier if we were, disadvantaged in many ways. But, as I look around, the people in this particular group, we don't have a lot of external enslavement or disadvantages. And so you really have to spend some time thinking about, what am I stuck in? And it's not easy. It's expectations, it could be parenting, it could be financial, it could be political, it could be physical, how you look. They're very subtle.
I think your points are so important. And I think, thanks for jumping in, because I think that at the end of the day, it's sometimes the subtle things that have the most impact. Because if we were certain things, it would be obvious. Okay, that's what's holding me back. On Sunday, I had this fascinating conversation with a group of girls, and one of the girls commented, I said, "How's everyone doing? How's everyone's life?" And one girl said a line that was so profound. She was a group of high school girls from Pittsburgh, and one of the girls said, "The external pressures of my life are minimized, but the internal ones are rising to the surface." I was like, wow, this is like a 15, 16-year-old. How profound, how real. Because I think, if anything, this message is so relevant right now, where so many of the external pressures, right? Like, I don't know, think of all the external pressure. Like we could be in pajamas right now. No one would care. You put on a filter, you put a nice background. They could, right now I'm in my dining room, but I could be anywhere. It doesn't make a difference. All the external pressures gone because we're not going to the movies or to the restaurants. So, oh, what restaurant did you go to? What movie did you go? Where did you guys go for this weekend? What outing did you take the kids out? Oh, was it Sunday fun day? Think of all the things that we're running to do. Oh, where am I holding a piano and karate? I'm going through silly examples. The external pressures are gone. Okay. Where do you go for spring break? Where are we going for summer camp? A lot of that, but on the internal pressures, now that's getting cranked up. That's revving its engine. Suddenly, when all the buzz and the chaos and the distraction and all the things that normally keep us very, very busy from listening, there's so much static and so much noise, we're not even listening to our inner voice. Okay? Suddenly, that is shelved. That's paused. That's on ice. Now comes the relationships with the people we're living with. We got to look at them. The relationship with ourselves, we got to look at. So let's say for all of us who are, let's say, making excuses, oh, I don't have time to organize my house, or I don't have time to make healthy food, or I don't have time to call my mom. And legit, we didn't have time. We're rushing, we're running. Now we have so much time. I was having a meeting with our sinus college, we're talking about graduation date. And they said, someone's like, oh, I have this. I'm like, guys, we have nothing going on. Like, none of us have anything going on. Like, let's not even pretend, you know what I mean? Like, what do we have, a Zoom date, a Zoom call of this? We're really, we're not. So I think now even more so, the message of the Omer is so, so, so relevant. And you know what's beautiful about being called Sephira to Omer? So we said Lispor means to count. It comes from the word count. And Omer was a barley offering. The other word that is explained, that's part of what's going on here, is a sapphire is a precious stone, a shining stone. A sapphire is a beautiful stone. What's a precious stone? It's something that is shiny and beautiful, but it's usually buried deep in the earth. It's usually covered by layers of dirt or mud or whatever. They're precious. We have those precious stones within us. We got to uncover the layers of dirt. And in a way, we're kind of being put in a position where we have to do that. We're kind of being put in a position where suddenly self-refinement, and suddenly that's the call of the hour, is those relationships, is myself, is the narrative in my own head, right? So in a way, we're able to go through this Omer exercise in a way that we've never been able to. Like, we can capitalize on this chaos. And that's still, again, and tomorrow we'll have a conversation about that Sarah will lead. It still comes with a lot of stress and anxiety and worry, and could lead to depression. And it's not a comfortable situation for anyone. Okay. But that being said, we are, like we said in the beginning, we're not meant to go back to normal. We're meant to go back to a different norm, which means I'm meant to leave this chaos, just like I'm meant to leave the 49 days of Omer, a better version of myself. I'm meant to leave this chaos also that way. Now, there are days that we could focus on that, and there are moments that we'll have highlights where we can think of it, and there are moments where we just need to get through the next 5 minutes without losing our cool or just feeling like we need to crash in bed, and all of those. And that was actually one of the first things I said to the girls on Sunday. You got to make space for the feelings you have. But on the other hand, we are being given a level of an opportunity to tap into who we really are, our inner character traits, and how we can refine them and become a better version of ourselves. So Lispor, yes, it means to count, but it also means sapphire, this gem, this stone, this sapphire that I have within me. How can I look at all those 7 character traits? Because they're not bad. Gevura, strength and severity, is not bad. You need Gevura. As a parent who just has chesed, a parent who just has loving kindness, gosh, if you're just a loving, kind friend, you become an enabler. All those character traits we need to be able to use in the right way. So let's look at and uncover them and look at and see how we can grow from them and how we can be a better version of ourselves from them. What is this name of Omer? So we said that Omer is this offering. Now, Chassidus actually explains that barley offering, the barley at those times was considered animal food. Animal food. The grain that we eat in Shavuot when we receive the Torah, that offering, or the bikurim that were the first fruits given as an offering in the temple, the first fruits were carried in baskets and beautiful fruit. That was Shavuot. And we know there's the Passover offering, Korban Chagiga, the holiday offering. Then comes these Omer offering, which is barley. Then comes the wheat and the bikurim. So this 49 days is paralleling this journey, fascinating journey of that also in the temple parallel different offering types. So the offering of the Omer is seen through the lens of Chassidus, through the lens of Kabbalah, as the animal offering. So if you recall, in the past classes, we've discussed our animal soul and our godly soul. What we are refining and offering up is we're eradicating from within ourselves, in each of those character traits, the aspect that is more the animal, being controlled by the animal soul. So Chassidus gives us a deep explanation, because otherwise, why is so much focus on the barley offering? No one's giving a barley offering. No one's going to the temple right now, right? But that parallel is a reminder to us that it's that animal soul that gets us in trouble. What's that animal soul? Our ego. We were just talking yesterday. We had an open Q&A with students, with Sinai scholars. It was on Instagram. And we're talking about anger. What does Judaism say about anger? And there were we went into a long discussion, but the core was anger was about ego and self. Ego and self, how I feel about what happened to me. So what we're meant to do during this time, and it's a really, really good opportunity, is to be able to focus on these things. And what's interesting is the first mitzvah God gave the Jewish people when they left Egypt wasn't to get a circumcision, and it wasn't bake matzah. It wasn't. The first mitzvah, anyone know what it was? To establish the calendar. Interesting. Establish the lunar calendar was the first mitzvah, Rosh Chodesh, a new month. Okay? And Levi's actually learning in Mishnah is how they do the new month and it was like a very technical, it wasn't a simple thing. It was like, oh, new moon, no problem, new month. It was quite technical. But what is it? Is that what we're meant to be? And this is where it kind of ties back to the message with Passover. Passover was all about enslavement. Someone else owned our time. Again, paralleling our lives right now. There were so many things that owned our time, that defined our time. And comes this mitzvah, the first mitzvah that Jews are given, in order to truly be free and to be able to not just be free for the sake of freedom, but free for the sake of maximizing your potential, living your best life, being the best you could be, which is what happened when we received the Torah. Is our potential we found the way to actualize our potential and create this fusion between the material world and the physical world. The material world and the spiritual world, which is what happened at Sinai and on Shavuot, comes through real freedom, comes through us being masters over our time, us being masters over our character, us being masters over ourselves. So this message right now is super, super timely and relevant, because who can't, I don't know about you. I for sure have certain areas of my character that I could refine, that I could work on. So pick up a good self-help book, listen to a good podcast, learn some Torah. There's so much out there. There's no shortage of Torah knowledge being shared at all, anywhere. There's so many opportunities now. Anyone wants to learn, literally live streaming classes across the world. I feel like this is part of the prophecy of Mashiach. There's a story that when the Baal Shem Tov met the Neshama of Mashiach, he said, when are you going to come? And he said, when your wellspring of your knowledge, the inner secrets, the mysticism of what's mysticism? Mysticism is how to straddle the two worlds of spiritual and physical. When that springs forth and spreads out all over the world, we'll be ready. And guess what? That is certainly happening right now. There are people who are able to take the Torah class that weren't able to because of time, because of other obligations, right? And this is going to be recorded and sent out, and other people will be able to tap into it. How awesome is it that that's what's going on? Now, again, not to discredit the pain, the suffering, the fear, all those emotions which we talked about extensively. And again, tomorrow, 12:30 let's talk with Sarah. And I know the 3 weeks that we did it were extremely like, I don't know, Sharon, you described it really well. They were like, you said it. It was like a gift, right? So we'll continue with that tomorrow. But the takeaway for today is to look. Now, there are apps for it. I told you, go to my Sphere counter. There are apps that not only tell you the daily Omer so you can count it, but it will send you a text to remind you. I get texts to remind me that I didn't count the Omer. It actually knows your time zone and knows when you should say it because it's an evening mitzvah, because that's the first opportunity for the new day. And we say the bracha in the evening. And so you'll get a text, and it will also have a daily activity to ask yourself, based on those character traits, how can you bring that into your life? How can you bring that into the life of others? Because again, growth doesn't happen in our own bubble. It doesn't. It happens with all the relationships we're part of. Any thoughts? Go ahead, jump in.
Hey, yeah, I know I'm not like technically part of this class, but I do have a thought.
Go for it. You're always part. Torah learning is for everyone.
Okay. Yeah, so what you were talking about too, how, counting the Omer is similar to like a gem. Not only is a gem like beautiful, and shiny, but it also takes time. It takes more time than any other type of rock or, anything like that. And it starts out as seemingly nothing, as dirt, as just, some carbon. But I think like this, not only like this 50 days, the spheros, but also this extra time we're given is actually a real gift for us, to really reflect and learn about ourselves, which, like we said, we were talking about enslavement, like it almost seems like there is no time to do nowadays, but now it really is a gift that we're given this time to do so. And we all said it, but I think we'll definitely come out of this a lot stronger than we would on just the normal year of Pesach, counting the Omer.
It's interesting you say that, and thank you for sharing, Joey. And I'm glad you got to join us in this class, because Torah learning is for everyone. And this is a lot less awkward than you joining the Torah and Tea in person, right?
Right.
But I think what you're saying is very true, because you and I have had conversations how this is a frustrating time. Like, this is frustrating, and it's lonely, and it's overwhelming. But I think that those of us who are able to try to see what we can gain from this experience, because it's not a mistake that we're in it right now. And again, like, this is not to discredit the pain and suffering, because there are people in a lot of pain. This is financial pain, emotional pain, psychological pain. People, social extroverts are struggling. Like I said last week, when I went to Chabad and I spent too many hours there and there was no one there, I was like so down afterwards. I was like, so like, oh, like but there's a lot that we can also learn from, a lot we can gain from, a lot we can grow from, because like we said in the beginning, we're not meant to go back to normal. Like Judith said, we're never going to go back to normal. We're actually not meant to go, because we're meant to, every experience we have, we're meant to bring into our lives. So this exercise of slaves to freedom, or slave mentality to a place where I can live my potential, we're taking those steps and we're moving forward. And there's, it's a day-by-day process. It's not, and this is something that we've talked about, Sarah, in our Thursday group. It's not something that happens overnight. Real change doesn't happen overnight. And that's what the Omer is telling us, is a strategic step-by-step plan that's not overwhelming. It's like if I say, I'm never going to yell again. Really? Am I never going to? You're laughing, Sharon. I'm glad you're laughing, because it means you relate to what I'm saying, okay? I feel a little better right now. I will yell again, but I can stop myself. I could learn after the moment to deal with it. I could try to be more compassionate. There's a lot of ways I could refine that. I may not completely eradicate it, because I'm still a human being, and I have that animal soul and that godly soul, but this Omer time is about refining, fine-tuning that animal soul and evolving. So I'm happy to share a link to the Omer app, but literally Android store, whichever app phone you have. I love the app because I feel like it really gives me a practical way of bringing that mitzvah into my life, and that reminder, conscious reminder, like even with as life has slowed down, we're still busy. You know, it's amazing now suddenly that we're all in our homes. There's so much to do still. Like how? And so that Omer app really, really helps me bring those lessons into my life daily. And I'll share the link below to some of them. But again, go to your app store. But like, remember, Judaism, there's a reason this is a mitzvah. What's a mitzvah? A mitzvah is a tzavta v'chibor. It's a connection. It helps us maximize who we are, why we're here, not what we need, but what we're needed for. And I think what we're needed for is essential to focus on. Sharon, you were going to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was still, this is just amazing. The examples that Hashem gives us, I mean, the 49 days, and the idea of just slowing down, because they had centuries of enslavement in their brains. And I don't think in 50 days it was all eradicated, but it took a moment of getting out of that constant stimuli of enslavement and reminders all around, creating new neural pathways of creating who we are and our image and what we're all about. And God in his infinite wisdom knew that 49 days was some sort of a magical number of, you know, of kind of detoxifying a lot of that and getting them ready for who they, you know, the Jewish people, what they are. And so I don't know, it's astonishing to me thinking about this and in our everyday life that, like you were saying, Manya, things that we need to change and not to be so harsh on ourselves. If God chose 49 days for his people to be changed, the way, you know, we see ourselves, the way, you know, the
step by step.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not saying anything that people don't already know, but it just reminds me of all the wisdom that we're gaining.
Yeah.
Of the examples that have already been given to us.
Yeah.
And so to not be too harsh that, okay, that habit doesn't, you know, like you said, the yelling or whatever it is that we're struggling with, it shouldn't go away in a day. It can't go away in a day, that we need to kind of put ourselves in a desert and you know, recalibrate. And that takes time. So this was amazing.
I think I loved what you said, because before the word neural pathways was even a thing, right? So Judaism, if we believe in Judaism, which we believe, that we have this omnipotent God that spans, that is not limited by time or space, you know, past, present, future. God knew about neural pathways before we knew about neural pathways, right? God created neural pathways. So yes, we know psychologically, we have to rewire ourselves, and we have to create a new pattern and create behavioral change. And this is giving us enough time, which is why this mitzvah spans, it goes into 3 months. Starts in Nisan, full month of Iyar, and then into Sivan. How unique is this mitzvah? It's not just a daily mitzvah we do 365. It's such a unique mitzvah, but there's a uniqueness to this time because, like you said, it's a detox. This is the ultimate detox, personality detox, behavioral detox. And we're able to like tap in to Torah's infinite wisdom in a different way. And it doesn't solve things because we're human and God does not want us. It's not like a light switch. We flip the switch and behavior is changed. Like, I'm never going to yell again. I'm never going to lose my cool again. I'm never going to be judgmental again. Anyone would tell, I always say, you're not always ever going to be anything to everyone, everything to everyone, right? There's no such thing as a constant because we're not angels. We're not AIs. Humans are known as mehalchim. We're going, we're moving, we're evolving. We're on a journey, okay? It's not a stagnant process. When someone's attached to a heart monitor, we know there's ups and the downs. Not only is that heart's physical journey, that's our journey as human beings, ups and downs. And Judaism gives us these incredible moments and these opportunities to re-tap in to these messages seasonally to draw that energy and that message into my life so I can look at that again. And I think, like you said, this is the ultimate personality detox, slow and steady, which is healthy, tapping into Torah's wisdom, which, you know, the beautiful thing about Torah's wisdom is it's constant. Jews have been doing this for years. And so we have this time, we can refine ourselves and we take the time, slow and steady. And what I've been trying to do for myself, aside from, the Omer app and all of that, I'm trying to think of like the overarching character trait. Let's say it's the week of Chesed or the week of Gevurah, the week of Tiferet. And I'm trying during that week to choose one moment or one behavior or one opportunity where I am focusing on growth in that area. So let's say I need Gevurah. How can I once this week really utilize this character trait of Gevurah and do better? Because it's not all or nothing, and it's not extremes. Extreme diets don't work. We know. Extreme behavioral changes don't work. Slow, steady. Yeah, and God told us this is the amount of time we need. Are there any other thoughts? We've like a minute left. Any other thoughts or ideas that anyone wants to jump in on? Tamara, go ahead. You want to unmute her? Because she doesn't have, hold on 1 second, Tamara, you're muted. Sorry. My mouse isn't working.
That's okay.
Go ahead, we hear you.
I was just thinking that I sent a message to a friend, and I was telling her that during this time, it's really giving me an opportunity to make better connections with my family. And yes, it is stressful at moments. I want to pull my hair out sometimes, but at other times I stop and I think, wow, this is a blessing. For many people, yes, there's many people that for them this is horrible, and I'm not saying that it's not. I'm just saying, but there's also a lot of blessings in many ways that we have during this time. I just myself, I get an opportunity to see what it would be like to be with my son more often and more time and create a better connection with him.
Yeah.
And with my husband. And when you think about that with the time that the Jews had, like their detox, or they're learning to reconnect in different ways and healthy ways, and even for them, what worked and what didn't work, even if they didn't want to focus on those things, they were kind of forced to do so just by the mere situation that they were in. And same with us, where you can look at it either in a positive way and accept the gifts that are given to us right now, or you can reject them. But
right.
Either way, it's still there.
Right. We're still going through this. I think you tapped on something very interesting, that this is a very paradoxical, there's a lot of paradoxical emotions going on, very conflicting emotions going on. I saw how my nephew, who is in Israel, turned 18, and because he's not gathering together with his friends or whatever, he did an online Farbrengen, I think on Sunday. Farbrengen is a gathering of minds and souls, and he had my father in New York and his uncle here and this one in Florida, and from all over, my kids here in Texas, all gathering together for a 2-hour Farbrengen. They're gathering, they're talking, they're inspiring, they're sharing words of Torah, they're singing, they're saying L'chaim. And I was thinking to myself, they could have done that last year, right? Here's my father getting together with his teenage grandchildren. How beautiful for him. And he said it was like this. He actually told the kids, he said, this has like been the highlight of my quarantine, because he is quarantined, right? He's older, he's conditioned, he has to be, right? So this was possible, but we were put in this circumstance, and now we're rising to the occasion of finding new ways to connect, because the connections are always important. The human connection is important, and we have to figure out how to do it. And it's connecting deep within ourselves and it's connecting with others. I got to attend my nephew's birthday party in Florida for the first time ever, right? He had a bunch of birthdays before. We surprised him, right? So I think that we have to just be creative, still learn that there is a very strong value to these lessons and these messages, and see how we can continue growing. Ladies, it's been amazing. Well, tomorrow at 12:30, Sarah's going to lead us on a fascinating discussion. It's been amazing. Let's talk, open forum for discussions. It's also an hour, but it's an hour that will really, I walk away it's a real gift. So great chatting, that we continue to learn together, study together, and grow together. Mwah.
Hey, Manya,
Yes.
I have one more question.
Sure,
Just a
go
quick
for it.
question.
Go for
So if you, for some reason, forget to say it that night, can you still say it in the day? Like, is
Okay,
that like the next
excellent.
day?
Technical question. Very possible to forget a night happens. Okay. The halacha is that when you at night you can make a bracha, because that's when the mitzvah is. Like if you light a candle on a Tuesday afternoon, you don't make a bracha for Shabbos Kodesh, right? You don't light a
Right.
lighting candle lighting bracha. So you at that moment you make a bracha. If you forgot the next day, you count during the day, and then the next night you resume the counting with a bracha. If you skip that day and you then the next night you would count without a blessing. So let's say you on 16, you counted and you made a blessing. The next night, 17, you forget, but the next day you remember you count, then at night you continue counting because you didn't skip a day. If you forget day 17 to say it and now it's night 18, then you continue saying it, but without a bracha, because basically you're counting, you're saying a bracha on this fact, a mitzvah that you commanded me to count all these days, but I skipped a day. So it's like, again, lighting a Shabbos candle on a Tuesday afternoon. It's lighting a candle. Your house may smell great, but you're not going to make a bracha. Okay.
Okay,
So
that makes sense. Yeah.
Brachas are also about time and space, and there's tapping into that energy that we're drawing into our lives. So thanks for that good technical question. And we'll meet up next week. Yeah. Any other questions?
Just an extension of his. Then on the 19th, you would start counting again, correct?
Yeah, you would count again, but without a blessing. Okay.
But you have a blessing after that?
No more blessings for the rest of the time, because the blessing is on that consistent, continuous counting, which you skipped. So you can, if you, let's say you haven't counted yet this year with a blessing, download the app, do the mitzvah without saying the bracha. Still beautiful, and it's still important, and it's still, and by the way, it's a beautiful thing to do with our children, because we're showing our children, let's take the time to think about ourselves and others. How powerful, how growing. Love you guys. We'll be continued. See you tomorrow, and same link, okay? Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
I can't close out because my mouse is literally just now.